Hey, y'all. Okay. On the Pride and Prejudice vote, Pride and Prejudice or Wuthering Heights, really close. I think one was 51, one was 49. Pride and Prejudice was the one that was 51. I think I have those numbers right. Anyway, Pride and Prejudice was the one with the most votes. So I'm gonna, I guess without saying that I did that, but I did write a comment today, and that was on my community page of the channel, that I was going to go with Pride and Prejudice, but since they were so close, I wanted to do Wuthering Heights also. So I'll start with Pride and Prejudice, but I'm going to wait until I finish up with Jo's Boys. But I'm so excited about that because, not that I'm not excited about Jo's Boys, I do like it, and I hope to finish. Maybe I can even, excuse me, read more so we can get finished quicker with Jo's Boys, because I want to get to Pride and Prejudice. I've already started reading it, just me, and I love the way it's starting out, just like some of the films I've seen. I've not ever read the book. What I'm most excited about is, since I won't have to mark though, I'm going to mark them as for adults from now on. The Jo's books, all the books I've read, have been in the children's section, maybe even young adult, but it's still within the realm of children's. So I felt, to be on the safe side, I needed to mark them for children. Maybe I didn't need to do that, but I felt like I should. Come on. Have the worst time with getting bookmarks to, there we go. And I think I'm at the right spot. Anyway, I'm most excited that since I'll be marking Pride and Prejudice and then later Wuthering Heights as for adults, the comment section will come back, and y'all be able to leave comments, which I have really missed with these. Yet that is a high art, child, and what we need for a time till we're ready for the masters. And what we need for a time till we are ready for the masters. Okay. Cultivate that talent of yours. It is a special gift, this power to bring tears and smiles, and a sweeter task to touch the heart than to freeze the blood or fire the imagination. Tell your uncle he is right, and ask your aunt to try a play for you. I'll come and see it when you're ready. Will you? Oh, will you? We're going to have some at Christmas with a nice part for me, a simple little thing, but I can do it and should be so proud, so happy to have you there. Josie rose as she spoke, for a glance at the clock showed her that her call was a long one, and hard as it was to end this momentous interview, she felt that she must go. Catching up her hat, she went to Miss Cameron, who stood looking at her so keenly that she felt as transparent as a pane of glass, and colored prettily as she looked up, saying with a grateful little tremor in her voice, I could never thank you for this hour and all you have told me. I shall do just what you advise, and Mama will be very glad to see me settled at my books again. I can study now with all my heart because it is to help me on, and I won't hope too much, but work and wait and try to please you as the only way to pay my debt. That reminds me that I have not paid mine, little friend. Wear this for my sake. It is fit for a mermaid and will remind you of your first dive. May the next one bring up a better jewel and leave no bitter water on your lips. As she spoke, Miss Cameron took from the lace at her throat a pretty pin of aquamarine and fastened it like an order on Josie's proud bosom. Then, lifting the happy little face, she kissed it very tenderly and watched it go smiling away with eyes that seemed to see into a future full of trials and the triumphs which she knew so well. Bess expected to see Josie come flying in, all raptures and excitement, or drowned in tears of disappointment, but was surprised at the expression of calm content and resolution which she wore. Pride and satisfaction and a new feeling of responsibility both sobered and sustained her, and she felt that any amount of dry study and long waiting would be bearable if in the glorious future she could be an honor to her profession and a comrade to the new friend whom she already adored with girlish ardor. She told her little story to a deeply interested audience, and all felt that Miss Cameron's advice was good. Mrs. Amy was relieved at the prospect of delay, for she did not want her niece to be an actress, and hoped the fancy would die out. Uncle Laurie was full of charming plans and prophecies, and wrote one of his most delightful notes to thank their neighbor for her kindness, while Bess, who loved art of all kinds, fully sympathized with her cousin's ambitious hopes, only wondering why she preferred to act out her visions rather than embody them in marble. The first interview was not the last, for Miss Cameron was really interested and had several memorable conversations with the Lawrences while the girls sat by, drinking in every word with the delight all artists feel in their own beautiful world, and learning to see how sacred good gifts are, how powerful and how faithfully they should be used for higher ends, each in its own place, helping to educate, refine, and refresh. Josie wrote reams to her mother, and when the visit ended, rejoiced her heart by bringing her somewhat changed little daughter, who fell to work at the once detested books with a patient energy which surprised and pleased everyone. The right string had been touched, and even French exercises and piano practice became endurable, since accomplishments would be useful by and by. Dress, manners, and habits were all interesting now, because mind and body, heart and soul must be cultivated. Miss Cameron's words. And while training to become, also her words, intelligent, graceful, healthy girl, little Josie was unconsciously fitting herself to play her part well on whatever stage the great manager might prepare for her. And that is the end of chapter 8. And I'm going to go ahead with chapter 9. The worm turns. Two very superior bicycles went twinkling up the road to Plumfield one September afternoon, bearing two brown and dusty riders, evidently returning from a successful run, for though their legs might be a trifle weary, their faces beamed as they surveyed the world from their lofty perches with the air of calm content all wheelmen wear after they have learned to ride. Before that happy period, anguish of mind and body is the chief expression of the manly countenance. Oh no. My book disappeared for a minute. I do not know why that happens. Okay. Countenance. Go ahead and report, Tom. I'm due here. See you later, said Demi, swinging himself down at the door of the Dovecote. Don't peach. There's a good... Peach? Or preach? There's a good fellow. Let me have it out with Mother Bear first, returned Tom, wheeling in at the gate with a heavy sigh. Demi laughed, and his comrade went slowly up the avenue, devoutly hoping that the coast was clear, for he was the bearer of tidings which would, he thought, convulse the entire family with astonishment and dismay. To his great joy, Mrs. Joe was discovered alone in a grove of proof sheets, which she dropped to greet the returning wanderer cordially. But after the first glance, she saw that something was the matter. Recent events having made her unusually sharp-eyed and suspicious. "What is it now, Tom?" she asked as he subsided into an easy chair with a curious expression of mingled fear, shame, amusement, and distress in his brick-red countenance. "I'm in an awful scrape, ma'am. Of course, I'm always prepared for scrapes when you appear. What is it? Run over some old lady who is going to law about it?" asked Mrs. Joe cheerfully. "Worse than that," groaned Tom. "Not poison some trusting soul who asked you to prescribe, I hope?" "Worse than that." "You haven't let Demi catch any horrid thing and left him behind, have you?" "Worse even than that." "I give it up. Tell me quick. I hate to wait for bad news." Having got her listener sufficiently excited, Tom launched his thunderbolt in one brief sentence and fell back to watch the effect. "I'm engaged." Mrs. Joe's proof sheets flew wildly about as she clasped her hands, exclaiming in dismay, "If Nan has yielded, I'll never forgive her." "She hasn't. It's another girl." Tom's face was so funny as he said the words that it was impossible to help laughing, for he looked both sheepish and pleased, besides very much perplexed and worried. "I'm glad, very glad indeed. Don't care who it is, and I hope you'll be married soon. Now tell me all about it," commanded Mrs. Joe, so much relieved that she felt ready for anything. "What will Nan say?" demanded Tom, rather taken aback at this view of his predicament. "She will be rejoiced to get rid of the mosquito who has plagued her so long. Don't worry about Nan. Who is this other girl?" "Demi hasn't written about her?" "Only something about your upsetting a Miss West down at Quitno. I thought that was scrape enough." "That was only the beginning of a series of scrapes, just my luck. Of course, after sousing the poor girl, I had to be attentive to her, hadn't I? Everyone seemed to think so, and I couldn't get away. And so I was lost before I knew it. It's all Demi's fault. If he would stay there and fuss with his old photos because the views were good and all the girls wanted to be taken. Look at these, will you, ma'am? That's the way we spent our time when we weren't playing tennis." And Tom pulled a handful of pictures from his pocket, displaying several in which he was conspicuous, either holding a sun umbrella over a pretty young lady on the rocks, reposing at her feet in the grass, or perched on a piazza railing with other couples in seaside costumes and effective attitudes. "This is she, of course?" asked Mrs. Joe, pointing to the much ruffled damsel with the jaunty hat, coquettish shoes, and racket in her hand. "That's Dora." "Isn't she lovely?" cried Tom, forgetting his tribulations for a moment and speaking with lover-like ardor. A very nice little person to look at. Hope she's not a Dickens, Dora. That curly crop looks like it." "Not a bit. She's very smart, can keep house and sew and do lots of things, I assure you, ma'am. All the girls like her, and she's sweet-tempered and jolly and sings like a bird and dances beautifully and loves books, thinks yours are splendid and made me talk about you no end. That last sentence is to flatter me and win my help to get you out of the scrape. Tell me first how you got in it." And Mrs. Joe settled herself to listen with interest, never tired of the boy's affairs. Tom gave his head a rousing rub all over to clear his wits, and plunged into a story with a will. "Well, we'd met her before, but I didn't know she was there. Jimmy wanted to see a fellow, so we went, and finding it nice and cool, rested over Sunday. Found some pleasant people and went out rowing. I had Dora and came to grief on a confounded rock. She could swim, no harm done, only the scare and the spoilt gown. She took it well, and we got friendly at once. Couldn't help it, scrambling into that beast of a boat while the rest laughed at us. Of course, we had to stay another day to see that Dora was all right. Demi wanted to. Alice Heath is down there and two other girls from our college, so we sort of lingered along And Demi kept taking pictures, and we danced and got into a tennis tournament. And that was as good exercise as wheeling, we thought. Fact is, tennis is a dangerous game, ma'am. A great deal of courting goes on those courts, and we fellows find that sort of serving mighty agreeable, don't you know? Not much tennis in my day, but I understand perfectly, said Mrs. Joe, enjoying it all as much as Tom did. Upon my word, I hadn't the least idea of being serious, he continued slowly, as if this part of the tale was hard to tell. But everyone else spooned, so I did. Dora seemed to like it and expect it, and of course I was glad to be agreeable. She thought I amounted to something, though Nan does not, and it was pleasant to be appreciated after years of snubbing. Yes, it was right down jolly to have a sweet girl smile at you all day and blush prettily when you said a neat thing to her, and look glad when you came, sorry when you left, and admire all you did, make you feel like a man and act your best. That's the sort of treatment a fellow enjoys and ought to get if he behaves himself, not frowns and cold shoulders year in and year out, and made to look like a fool, and he means well and is faithful and has loved a girl ever since he was a boy. No, by Jove, it's not fair, and I won't stand it. Tom waxed warm and elegant as he thought over his wrongs and bounced up to march about the room, wagging his head and trying to feel aggrieved as usual, but surprised to find that his heart did not ache a bit. I wouldn't. Drop the old fancy, for it was nothing more, and take up the new one if it is genuine. But how came you to propose, Tom, as you must have done to be engaged? Asked Mrs. Joe, impatient for the crisis of the tale. Oh, that was an accident. I didn't mean it at all. The donkey did it. And I couldn't get out of the scrape without hurting Dora's feelings, you see, began Tom, seeing that the fatal moment had come. So there were two donkeys in it, were there? Said Mrs. Joe, foreseeing fun of some sort. Don't laugh. It sounds funny, I know, but it might have been awful, answered Tom darkly, though a twinkle of the eye showed that his love trials did not quite blind him to the comic side of the adventure. The girls admired our new wheels, and of course we liked to show off, took 'em to ride, and had larks generally. Well, one day Dora was on behind, and we were going nicely along a good bit of road when a ridiculous old donkey got right across the way. I thought he'd moved, but he didn't, so I gave him a kick. He kicked back, and over we went in a heap, donkey and all. Such a mess. I thought only of Dora, and she had hysterics. At least she laughed till she cried, and that beast brayed, and I lost my head. Any fellow would, with a poor girl gasping in the road, and he wiping her tears and begging pardon. As she was laughing. Not knowing whether her bones were broken or not, I called her my darling and went on like a fool in such a flurry till she grew calmer and said with such a look, I forgive you, Tom. Pick me up and let us go on again. Wasn't that sweet now, after I'd upset her for the second time? It touched me to the heart, and I said I'd like to go on forever with such an angel to steer for. Well, I don't know what I did say, but you might have knocked me down with a feather when she put her arm around my neck and whispered, Tom, dear, with you, I'm not afraid of any lions in the path. She might have said donkeys, but she was in earnest, and she spared my feelings. Very nice of the dear girl, but there I am with two sweethearts on my hands, and in a deuce of a scrape. Finding it impossible to contain herself for another moment, Mrs. Joe laughed till the tears ran down her cheeks at this characteristic episode. And after one reproachful look, which only added to her merriment, Tom burst into a jolly roar that made the room ring. Tommy bangs, Tommy bangs. Who but you could ever get into such catastrophe, said Mrs. Joe when she recovered her breath. Isn't it a muddle all around, and won't everyone chafe me to death about it? I shall have to quit old Plum for a while, answered Tom as he mopped his face, trying to realize the full danger of his position. No, indeed, I'll stand by you, for I think it the best joke of the season. But tell me how things ended. Is it really serious or only a summer flirtation? I don't approve of them, but boys and girls will play with edged tools and cut their fingers. Well, Dora considers herself engaged and wrote to her people at once. I couldn't say a word when she took it all in solemn earnest and seemed so happy. She's only 17, never liked anyone before, and is sure all will be all right, as her father knows mine, and we are both well off. I was so staggered that I said, why, you can't love me really when we know so little of one another. But she answered right out of her tender little heart, yes, I do, dearly, Tom. You're so gay and kind and honest, I couldn't help it. Now, after that, what could I do but go ahead and make her happy while I stayed, and trust to luck to straighten the snarl out afterwards? A truly Tominian way of taking things easy. I hope you told your father at once. Oh, yes. I wrote off and broke it to him in 3 lines. I said, Dear Father, I'm engaged to Dora West, and I hope she will suit the family. She suits me tip-top, yours ever, Tom. He was all right. Never liked Nan, you know, but Dora will suit him down to the ground, and Tom looked entirely satisfied with his own tact and taste. Well, what did Demi say to this rapid and funny love-making? Wasn't he scandalized? Asked Mrs. Joe, trying not to laugh again as she thought of the unromantic spectacle of donkey, bicycle, boy and girl all in the dust together. Not a bit. He was immensely interested and very kind, talked to me like a father, said it was a good thing to steady a fellow, only I must be honest with her and myself and not trifle a moment. Denny is a regular Solomon, especially when he's in the same boat, answered Tom, looking wise. You don't mean, gasped Mrs. Joe in sudden alarm at the bare idea of more love affairs just yet. Yes, I do, please, ma'am. It's a regular sell all the way through, S-E-L-L. And I owe Demi one for taking me into temptation blindfolded. He said he went to Quitno to see Fred Wallace, but he never saw the fellow. How could he, when Wallace was off in his yacht all the time we were there? Alice was the real attraction, and I was left to my fate while they were maundering round with that old camera. There were 3 donkeys in this affair, and I'm not the worst one, though I shall have to bear the laugh. Demi will look innocent and sober, and no one will say a word to him. The midsummer madness has broken out, and no one knows who will be stricken next. Well, leave Demi to his mother, and let us see what you're going to do, Tom. And I'm going to stop right there. Oh, my goodness. What a funny chapter. Okay. I hope you will have a great Saturday. And I'll be live today at 3. Be sweet. Don't be ugly. Love to all. Bye-bye.